sometimes you gotta hit them with the truth, yeah. So let's talk about the nervous system. Yeah? Yeah. So I want to frame this entire discussion today because it ties into massage therapy in more ways than we might suspect. I hope that we don't get too caught up in neurons and all that kind of stuff and the chemical messengers, all that kind of stuff. It's important to know that. It's important to know the chemistry that's going on and how your nervous system works, and we're going to discuss that. That's what the book discusses. But I want you to have a little bit of a bigger picture about the nervous system, and it even ties into what Miss Abelos said, where she said outside circumstances don't pick whether she's happy or not, right? The fact is that you are generating your internal perception of reality all the time. And it's largely hallucinatory. It really, really is. We think that we see the world like others, but we actually have no way of knowing that. So we know that we agree on general things. We know that we all agree on where the massage room is, and you guys can find it. And we all agree on those type of things, big locations and stuff. But how we color the world and how we perceive it, we have no idea if your idea of red is my idea of red, for example. Right? Red might look like green to me, but I've learned to call it red. Like, we don't know that because I don't actually really see it. Right? What happens is that I am truly living inside a body, and all the information coming to my brain is coming through my outside senses as electrical signals that then my brain must interpret. And they are literally just signals bombarding my brain, hundreds of thousands of them, going dee 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 dee, and your brain is literally trying to figure out what that means. And it has learned over time that, oh, that's what people call red. Dee 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 for me is red. But we don't actually know that you see it the same way that other people see it. I don't know if your world is brighter than mine, literally brighter, or grayer, or anything. We don't know that. This is why we do the gratitude exercise, because you can actually change your world because it's really happening between your ears. So, this is very important to clients because part of what we're doing with clients is not just working with their physical nervous system, but trying to rewire the way they perceive their body. Trying to actually teach them that they can reconnect with their body, become aware of areas of their body. A lot of our clients come in and they've been cut off from parts of their body. A lot of us, myself included, have been cut off from parts of our body. And so we're not just dealing with the nervous system in the sense that I put my hand on a hot fire and I go, ow, which, by the way, is an illusion, too. That's my brain trying to get my attention that something's going wrong, and so it's telling me I'm in pain. But it doesn't actually really feel pain. It just hears dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, and it's like, those are pain sensors. I've got to get this guy's attention because he's going to burn his hand off. So I want us to kind of consider that as we're going through this, that in many ways you create your own reality, and you're getting all this from sensors on from the outside, and your clients' perceptions too have a lot to do with their health and their healing and all that sort of stuff. So don't forget that essentially your nervous system is wires that are attached to sensors, and those sensors actually send back very limited information. The sensors are just switches that get switched on and off when they experience something. So your heat sensors get switched on when they feel heat and off when they don't. Your cold sensors get switched on. The different sensors, by the way, get switched on when they feel heat or are cold and not heat. Your pain sensors get switched on when they get chemicals that say tissue's being damaged. They're not actually pain sensors. Nociceptors are called pain sensors, and we're going to call them pain sensors because that's what everybody calls them. They don't sense pain. They sense chemicals that are released in your body that tells them tissue is being damaged. They don't feel pain, and they send a signal to your brain. Your brain has learned to teach you that that's painful because that's what gets your attention. You will have many clients that come to you and you're massaging them, and they'll be like, oh, that kind of hurts. And you'll go, is that a good or a bad pain? And they'll stop. I've had this happen 1,000 times. And they go, oh, I never thought about it like that. It's actually kind of good. You just changed their entire world. They didn't even know to distinguish between different types of stimulus. Many of you do things that other people would consider pain. Mr. Singletary is up there doing curls. He is getting a muscular burn. People that don't work out tend to not like that experience. They find it painful. People that work out find it pleasurable because they associate it with fitness and good things. So our interpretations on our nervous system are extremely key. But again, you don't see me right now. Not really. Your eyes pick up sensors and they send back signals to your brain, and your brain has learned to construct that together, and you call that TAPSCOT. You don't feel where you're sitting right now. Your little butt sensors are going dee 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 dee, and your brain's like, well, that's usually what we feel when we've been sitting in a chair. Therefore, I'm going to experience sitting in a chair. This is why when you dream, it seems very real. Because if your brain believes it, it's real. You wake up with your heart pounding from a dream or whatever. This is why when you're this is why reading a book is so pleasurable for Miss Stevens and her sister, because when you read a book, it's often even better than a movie because you insert the scenery. Yes, the author talks about it, but you insert all the stuff in there. You insert that and it becomes extremely real. Your brain does not know the difference between imagining a lion attacking you and an actual lion attacking you. It does not know the difference. Imagination is extremely, extremely powerful. Anybody who's good at marketing knows this. knows this. Miss Hendrickson, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of compliment your comment about dreams, because I usually have very, very realistic dreams, and not just like the sensation, but like the content is very realistic. Like my nightmare will be something like that could really happen. It's not usually like some kind of monster. It's like a life circumstance that would be really terrifying. So when I wake up, I'm like, I have to like ground myself again, like, no, that wasn't real.
Yeah.
Like remind myself, because it really feels so real.
It does. I had a dream that I got in the middle of the night, made myself a milkshake or something, broke the blender. This is a long time ago. I got up in the morning and I went out and looked at that blender. I was sure. Blender was fine. I didn't make a milkshake. None of that. The dream was that realistic to me. So I tell you this because it's very important to understand the nervous system. That is a wiring system that sends signals. You might as well be a computer. You really might as well be a computer. And very much like on your computer, the icons on the computer stand for stuff, but the icons aren't the stuff. And we'll get to that later more. But I just want to kind of frame this entire conversation about that. So let's talk about the nervous system, because we're going to get into fight or flight stuff and things like that, and I want to kind of throw that out there. This is why it's also very important to tell your clients honest, do not lie. Not just because it's not good to lie, but because they won't believe you later. But honest things that are positive about their progress, right? Always try to find honest stuff you can share with them about their progress, because you're trying to change their internal dialogue too, so that the signals they receive make more sense to them and they heal better. So for example, when I loosen up a client's shoulders that are really, really tight, sometimes I'll have people come in and their shoulders are really tight. This will happen to you. This is why I'm relating it to massage. They're so tight, they'll be like, I don't even really feel my shoulders, but I know they're tight. And you start to open them up, and at the end of the massage, you're like, wow, now they hurt. And I'm like, yeah, I bet they do, because you were so tight that your nerves were so pinched that you got no sensation. This is actually a positive thing, that you can now feel your shoulders and feel that they hurt. And just telling them that, which is the truth, they go, oh yeah. Oh, that means I'm getting better. And you actually watch their shoulders drop, because here's the other thing about your brain. It tends to make true what it believes to be true. So when I say that's a sign your shoulders are getting better, all of a sudden you see people drop their shoulders. Right? If you know you're stressed, you actually start to make sure you're stressed. these type of things. So we want to make sure we're conveying to our clients. Like a lot of times, I'll tell people like, like we loosen up these muscles right now, you're still going to feel some pain because the nerves have been pinched so long, but you'll see that probably start to slowly subside, right? Because we've loosened it up. The nerves are still irritated. It takes a while for the nerves to calm down. It does. And then it'll start to feel better afterwards. I'm making sure that they look for that because they've been looking for and used to being in pain for years. If I don't tell them to look for a change, they're not going to see it. We all miss tremendous amounts of information. They say coming at you right now, there are millions of bits of information, and you're lucky if you can focus on 10,000 bits at a time, which means you are missing 99% of reality all the time. We all focus on very different things. I will get to the slideshow, but one last thing along these lines. Sorry for the long soapbox speech here, but it's important to kind of understand how we deal with people. If I went to a party, if we all went to a party together, and we came back and talked about that party, there are things we would agree on and things we would not agree on at all about what happened at that party. One of you would come back and be like, did you notice all the shoes people were wearing? They were so cool. And I'd be like, shoes? I don't look down at shoes. Like, why? But that person is interested in shoes. Somebody else would come back and be like, did you notice those people arguing over there? That person is interested in conflict. You tend to look for your interest. I don't mean you like these things. I meant they are of interest to you. Right? Any of you have been pregnant before? Did you notice that everybody seemed pregnant when you were pregnant? You all of a sudden noticed all the pregnant people. I did. When my wife was pregnant, I noticed all the pregnant people. Then when she wasn't pregnant, I stopped noticing pregnant people. It's not that I never saw one, but it was like the world changed for me because of what I was focused on. We want to make sure we can help our clients focus on the right things and to look for new signals coming into their body because we are going to create improvement in their body and they need to know to look for it. Otherwise, they tend just to stay in habitual patterns and their brain just tends to assume that the stuff is staying the same. Miss Carrillo.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember I went into your office and I explained I was trying to help my friend with her triceps. Like her arm in general was hurting, but I worked her triceps to try and make the blood flow. I talked to her about it to relay the information because I wanted to make sure I'm not screwing up her arm. And she said the pain feel more basic discomfort as opposed to before when it was more like debilitating. Like nothing I did really made it better, so I was left being able to do nothing. So this progress is promising because I can actually do stuff and take breaks when discomforted. And after the break, the discomfort is barely there. Like, wow. Like, cause I was really afraid I was hurting her because I rubbed this like twice and she was hurting afterwards twice. But after a while, she's like, I can do stuff now. So I just wanted to basically support what you said.
Yeah. I just want you to realize there is a huge mental aspect, a huge soft skill aspect to massage. And again, I'm not talking about lying to people. I'm just talking about making sure they look for stuff. I try to do it as your teacher, right? I'll never tell you you're doing good at something you're not doing good at, I promise you. But I want to catch you in the act of doing good. I want to be like, that was really smart. Like, who cares about the answer being wrong? That was really clever. If I can find something to show you that is progress, I'm absolutely going to share that with you. And you want to do the same thing with your clients. Yes. Yeah, otherwise we misinterpret what's going on. Yeah. Ms. Hendrickson, please.
Yeah, it just it kind of made me think of how, like in court, eyewitness testimony is typically has a lot of errors in it. People don't really remember things exactly as they happen, and the accounts can be very different. But it's also one of the most trusted kinds of kind of evidence. People usually believe eyewitness testimony because I think it's because we're just like, I mean, we create our own world, so we tend to like believe like what someone's experience is going to be like that's right, but they don't really realize how many different factors come into play and how you can remember something incorrectly, especially over time, based on a lot of different influences and when people talk about it and stuff like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. When you guys remember something, what they say is that you actually insert the details into that memory. So you're right. We rewrite our own history over and over again. Yep. Well said. Just simple thoughts like when I say the word dog, all of you are thinking about a different dog. Right? And that's fine. We all know that a dog basically what it is, so we can agree on that, but we're all thinking about a very different dog right now.
Yeah, we all have different connotations of a dog. Like if someone was like bit by a dog when they were little and they're afraid of all dogs, then like they're gonna have a different response than some.
Absolutely. Different response,
who's
different
like,
dog in their head, everything. Yeah. By the way, this is the reason we read back to clients what they've told us. It's like Miss Clayton talking about her massage and miscommunication and such. Very important with clients. So you're telling me XYZ. You're telling me you want to spend the entire time on my shoulders, on your shoulders because they're sore. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. My shoulders really bother me. I still want a full body. Oh, so you want to do a full body and do just a little extra time on your shoulders. Yeah, that's what I want. Always read back to them because language is not as clear as you think. Anybody who's in a good relationship, or a bad relationship, but a good relationship even, will knows that you sometimes have to have a conversation with your friend or significant other multiple times, not because they're an idiot, because you guys use language differently. It's very hard to really hear other people. Mr. Mog.
Yes, sir. Sometimes there's a moment, something happened to you or something happened to me, and the weird thing is you feel this thing had happened before, and you even know what's going on next step. So you are trying to remember when this did happen and why it's exactly the same thing. What is happening right now? So I'm curious, is there anybody of you have the same feeling like me?
Oh yes, we call that we call that deja vu. It is such a common experience, sir. I think it's French, deja vu, and we call it deja vu, and it's so common that we have a name for it. You're not the only one, and I would comment more about why that happens, but there's all sorts of theories about why that happens. I know where some people in this class would fall, which I love. Anyway, but really quickly, sir, that could just be old stored memory from something similar that your brain's remembering. Some people think it's a past life that's kind of bleeding through or something like that. So, but the point is, yes, everybody has that experience. We've all had deja vu. Yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah. All right, everybody. You're a past lifer, Mr. Jones. All right. Okay, everybody. Now, the nervous system. Thank you, and I'm sorry, but it really, honestly, some of these chapters are really about learning definitions of things that we will never actually physically touch. And so, love going down the rabbit hole, too. Me, too. Yeah. Take the blue pill. Yeah. Okay. Nervous system and its pathologies. Boom. Here we go. Okay, so homeostasis. Homeostasis is the tendency of your body to try to remain in a relatively constant narrow range to keep you alive, by the way. You essentially, like your core temperature of your body, for example, has to stay within about a 5-degree range or things get really bad. So I don't know why I would do this, but I'm going to pick on Mr. Richards because I can see him. Mr. Richards, I can take Mr. Richards' arm and I can dunk it in a ice water bath to the point where he feels pain and then it finally goes numb and his arm drops down 30 degrees. And he will be fine. We'll pull his arm back out and he'll be fine. He'll be able to use his arm again. Probably won't even have any damage at all. If we did that with his core temperature, where his heart, lungs, chest, brain, all that type of stuff is, he would die once we got down about 10 degrees or so. Your body is constantly trying to keep your core temperature, your core state, your core chemistry, everything in this state of homeostasis. I bring this up because it also does this structurally. My body is trying to stay structurally in good posture. even though I'm often doing things to it consciously and unconsciously to mess that up. So have you ever wondered why, if you feel a really tight muscle, let me put it this way, if you feel really tight muscle, what does that mean about the muscle? Why is a muscle tight? I don't mean how did it get tight or anything, but I meant why, what does that mean? What does tightness, just tightness mean? Miss Carrillo.
Is it because it's contracting?
Thank you. The muscle is 100% what I'm looking for. The muscle is contracting. Well, if I have tight shoulders, right? I have a tight upper trapezius. We've seen people come in. You guys have a tight trapezius, right? Why am I not walking around with my shoulders up in my ears? Some people are, but a lot of people have really tight shoulders and their shoulders are not up like this, but that's what happens when my upper trapezius contracts. So what's going on? Miss Hendrickson.
Another muscle is activated opposite to like keep it in check. So like
Yes.
it would probably be like your lower back.
Yes, my lower trapezius, and possibly other things, but my lower trapezius would be fighting that. And my brain is doing that to keep me in homeostasis, posture-wise. I just heard a kitty cat. Anyway, so you try to stay in homeostasis with your posture as well. That's all I want to say. So your brain, when it feels you tighten up something, it often tightens up other things to try to get you back in good posture. Because that's how you function best. Okay? We're trying to get clients back into homeostasis, but we're trying to get them not to argue with within their body to keep themselves in homeostasis. But anyway, homeostasis is the body's tendency to try to keep a constant internal environment despite what's going on in the outside world. And not to keep mentioning Miss Abelos, but she talked about keeping homeostasis of her spirit despite what's going on in the outside world. Because we have that same power over our attitude and everything to keep homeostasis despite what's going on out here. We're very well equipped for this. This is why you guys can walk outside in Phoenix in the summer, and you can walk outside Phoenix in the winter and you don't die. Because your body takes care of maintaining an internal homeostasis automatically. All right. Your nervous system. It's made up of your brain. I do not like this analogy, but it gives us something. The computer of your body, right? Up here, you're much more than a computer. That's why I don't like it. But for simple thought process, the computer of your body is your brain. Your spinal cord, which is a whole group of wires. Please think of them as wires. They might be wires made out of tissue. They might be living wires, but they really are wires. Wires coming out, and the reason the spinal cord is so big is because it's a bundle of a whole lot of wires that have to split off into smaller wires. It's not a pipe coming out of your brain with water pipes coming off it. There is literally a wire that goes from my brain, down my spinal cord, out my sacrum, down to my little toe. There is another wire that goes from my brain, down my spinal cord, down to my little toe with a different sensor on it. There is another wire in my brain going down my spinal cord, out my sacrum, down my leg, to my little toe with another sensor on it. There is about 10,000 wires going down my brain to my little toe with all these different sensors on it, pain receptors, heat receptors, pressure receptors, just so I can feel my little toe. So you can imagine how many wires I have to have coming down my spinal cord to branch out to my whole body. This is why you do not want to sever your spinal cord. It's very bad. Okay, so I got my brain and my spinal cord, and once those wires come out the spinal cord, which they come out all over the spinal cord, we already talked about this, right? The ones coming out the side of my spinal cord on my neck go to where? The wires, yes. Miss Hendrickson, please.
To your arm.
Yes, the ones coming down my spinal cord further and coming out in my thoracic region go to my thoracic region. The ones that get down to my lumbar and come out go to where? Where do the nerves coming out the sides of my lumbar? They're peripheral nerves now. By the way, once they come out of the spinal cord, they're called peripheral nerves. It's the same wires, but they've split off. When they come out of my lumbar region, where do those go, Miss Carrillo?
To your legs?
Yes, to my legs, but which side, anterior or posterior?
Anterior.
Yes, the lumbar comes down and wraps around and goes in front. The ones that come out my sacrum go down the back of my legs, right? There are some tiny exceptions to this, but it's pretty darn accurate. And it's really helpful in figuring out. That's why when somebody says, hey, my arm's bothering me, I work their arm, but I always work their neck because it could just be a false signal, right? Their brain, by the way, remember, your brain doesn't really know what's going on. If you pinch a nerve that goes to your little finger and you pinch it in your neck, it thinks there's a problem with your little finger. It doesn't know. It has to trust you. If I call your guys on your cell phone and I say fire at the school, you don't know. I could be crazy. I could be telling you the truth. You have to trust the information coming, and that's what your brain does. It goes, this wire is going off. I'm assuming there's a problem with the little finger. Quite often it's not. So, by the way, please, I know I've said this before, but please do not assume that when somebody has pain in their arm that they have a problem in their neck. We don't know, but that's why we work both. All right? So, check those areas. Anyway, those are peripheral nerves. Brain and spinal cord is your central nervous system. It's the center of your body. That makes sense, right? It's in your axial skeletal system. And then your peripheral nerves are in your appendicular skeletal system, your periphery. We talk about peripheral vision. It's the ability to kind of see out the sides of your eyes. Your periphery, your peripheral nerves, they go down your arms and legs. And then your nervous system is also made up of your sensory organs, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your skin. Your skin's a big one, by the way. Remember, your tegumentary system is the largest organ in your body, and it's a lot of what makes you feel like you're in the world. You know, we hear about people that are blind or deaf, but they have a pretty good sense of the world still. You lose sensation with your skin, and you don't really know where you are. Because your skin really gives you a sense of being in an environment. Very, very important. And then they include neurotransmitters in this, which are usually chemical transmitters that transmit information. We'll get to those in a second. Don't worry about that yet. Anyway, just an overview again of the nervous system. The big things that your nervous system does is it receives information in, which your brain must interpret. This is what Mr. Tapscott went on for 15, 30 minutes today about. But your nervous system receives information from the outside world. Your brain interprets it, and it can interpret it wrong. It often does. And it also can send signals out, and we call that motor output. The output to run my motors. I can send signals. I cannot move this arm if I cannot get a signal to it. This is why when somebody is paralyzed, they can't feel that, let's say they're paralyzed in their legs, they can't feel their legs or move their legs because the same wires essentially do that, right? They've got wires going out there to get sensory information from the leg, that's cut, and the wires that go out and tell the legs to move are cut. Yeah. Okay. So, central nervous system, you will hear about two nervous systems. They're all the same nervous system, by the way. This is one of the things that's very confusing about reading about the nervous system. The nervous system is one thing, but again, of course, we like to divide it up. The central nervous system is your spine, brain, and spine. It's your brain and spine. They also have, well, we'll get to that in a second. Sorry. And then you have your peripheral nervous system. Remember, your peripheral nervous system is really the wires from your spine just coming out to your periphery, coming out to your chest, coming out to your arms, coming out to your legs. So you got central nervous system, brain, and spine. As those wires split off and go out to the rest of your body, that's your peripheral nervous system. To make things even more confusing, but it is important, they divide up the peripheral nervous system into somatic and autonomic systems. When you hear autonomic, think automatic. Your autonomic nervous system runs automatically. Now, I don't quite like that term because your brain is very actively running your autonomic nervous system. You guys just aren't thinking about it right now. I'm not thinking about it. You don't have to think to beat your heart. You don't have to think to breathe. You can change your breathing, but you don't have to think to breathe. You're not controlling all your hormonal balances. You're not controlling your blood sugar right now. You're not doing all these things that are happening in the autonomic nervous system. That essentially goes on automatically. The one thing I don't like about that is that does not mean we don't have some control over it, because we do. Miss Hendrickson.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna ask. Because I mean, obviously breathing you can change, but I wonder if you could affect your hormones as well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you can affect like your cortisol and your like your stress hormones by going out of the parasympathetic, like switching off the parasympathetic
Yep.
part of the nervous system.
Absolutely. It's actually the reason we do gratitude. Because your state of mind definitely affects your autonomic nervous system. We know people with positive attitudes have higher immune systems. Your immune system is part of your autonomic nervous system, but it runs higher on people that have positive attitudes. We know that when you're depressed, your immune system gets worse. We know these things happen. So yes, if you guys, have you ever gotten really mad? I have. Have you ever gotten really mad? And your heartbeat starts racing and all that kind of stuff? That's automatic, but who started it? This guy, right? So it's automatic in the sense you don't have to think about it, but you can control it. It's very much like a lot of your cars. A lot of you have automatic transmissions, but you can shift manually if you want. You can shove it into first gear and keep it there if you want. You can put it into second, right? So autonomic, though, tends to be your automatic nervous system. It's all the stuff going on your behalf, and it is good. So if Miss Savarino did not have an autonomic nervous system right now, she would not be able to pay attention to me as she's walking, because she'd have to think about how she walks, all the muscles she's firing, keep breathing, keep her heart going, I'm not talking about 10 things. I'm talking about millions of things she would have to keep track of while she was listening to my brilliant words of wisdom here. And she would not be able to do that. She's amazing, but she would not, because I would just be number 4,072,000 out of all those things she's taking care of. But her body makes that a subroutine and takes care of it automatically. If you ever watched a kid learn to walk, the reason they are so like shaky like this is their brain is literally telling them, like, tweak this muscle over here, listen to that inner ear over here, pull this thing over here. And you guys have gotten so good at it that your brain remembers how to do that, and now I just tell myself to walk, and that's a subroutine down there. I fire off the subroutine. And that subroutine, by the way, I'm not exaggerating, involves firing 72 muscles in the right amounts, by the way, because it depends how fast I'm walking, all this other stuff, with split-second precision. To walk as well as I am walking right now requires tremendous amounts of brain power. And I can't possibly think about that, because I've got to talk to you guys. So my brain makes that a subroutine. I'm making a big deal out of this because your brain makes everything a subroutine after a while. If you do something often enough, it becomes a subroutine. Right? When you learn to ride a bike, it became a subroutine, which is why you can get on a bike after many years again, and it kind of fires up again. We can also make negative and positive things in our life a subroutine, where we automatically kind of default to that. And that's why I bring that up too. People who've been in pain a long time, sometimes when you even remove it, they're still kind of left with that lingering subroutine. They've got to relearn that pattern. Ms. Hendrickson.
Yeah, it just reminded me of this book I read about atomic habits. But they're talking about how, like, when you do something for a long time, like, you associate these things with details that you notice that you wouldn't, like, consciously be able to recognize what it is. But, like, so there was a lady who was a paramedic, and her father-in-law came to, like, a barbecue or something, and as soon as she saw him, she was like, something's wrong, you need to go to the hospital. And he was like, what are you talking about? Fine. And she's like, no, you don't look good, you need to go to the hospital. And it turned out he was, like, having a heart attack, or the first stages of a heart attack, and it was something to do with, like, how his face looked, like the color in his face, but she didn't, like, consciously recognize what it was. But just after seeing that so many times with people who were, like, didn't have oxygen, and they were, like, starting to die. She just like knew that. So those like habits become ingrained, and
Yes.
that information is stored without you like being able to
Yes.
verbalize it.
Yes. Well said. Really nicely. Yeah. And by the way, 99% of the time, 99% of the time, your subroutines are amazing. But PTSD is also a subroutine. Right? You've learned that when this thing happens, bad stuff happens. And that gets built in because your body's trying to save you. So that is also part of a subroutine. All right. So you've got the stuff that's under your immediate control, like my hand gestures right now. That is under my somatic nervous system. My autonomic is taking care of stuff I'm not choosing to take care of, basically. All right, so we have the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. We're going to further divide the peripheral nervous system into what's under my control and what's automatic, but also under my control. But anyway, somatic and autonomic. And then we take this autonomic nervous system, and we divide it up into two more categories. It tends to run, when it's in automatic mode, in either the sympathetic or the parasympathetic mode. And you'd think sympathetic would mean something different. But sympathetic tends to mean, when you are sympathetic, you tend to agree with stimuli coming in. And in the sympathetic mode, you are getting ramped up. It is your fight or flight mode. And you need it to survive. You have all used your sympathetic mode. It has saved your lives before, I guarantee you. But that is your fight or flight mode. Your parasympathetic mode is what happens when you're getting a massage. It is your rest and digest mode. It is the mode where you rest and repair. So, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. I put this kind of as a chart to show you how they break down. Somatic, autonomic, and then autonomic divides up into sympathetic, which is fight or flight, and parasympathetic, which is when you heal. This is very important because, for lots of reasons, but it's one of the reasons that you will save people's lives as a massage therapist and not even know it. So, I don't know if we have any Trekkie fans out there, but, when the Starship Enterprise is trying to get away from something, they divert all the power and sometimes a little bit off life support to the engine so they can get out of some place, right? When you are in flight mode, you stop resting and digesting. Your body is smart. If I am running from a bear, I don't need to digest my breakfast sandwich. Because if I don't get away from the bear, it doesn't really matter about the breakfast sandwich. So when you are in a fight or flight mode, your body literally shuts down blood to your stomach. It shuts down energy and blood to your immune system. I don't care if I catch a cold, if I'm going to get eaten by a tiger. Does not matter. No, my body's super smart. It's like this is why people display superhuman strength sometimes. They shut down energy to everything else except the task at hand. And their body shuts off also every safety switch it's got and says, we don't care. We've got to lift this car up. We've got to get out of here. We've got to do this thing. So it's a very useful thing, the fight or flight thing. But I just want to be very clear that when you're in fight or flight mode, you're not in healing mode. And so your body also stops doing things like keeping viruses at check that are in your bodies right now. We all have viruses in our body right now. It's not a bad thing, but they're there. Cancer. You all have cancer. I'm very sorry to tell you. Don't let it freak you out, though, because your body keeps it in check all the time. It's not like you get it from somewhere else. But when you're in fight or flight mode, your body stops worrying about that because it's worried about getting out of there. Miss Carrillo.
It made me think, so people with like high anxiety, because they're always in that fight or flight mindset, it's really affecting their immune system, right? Because it shuts all that down. So that's crazy to me.
It's crazy. I love that you said it that way. Thank you. It is crazy, but how many of you have been really stressed and then got sick? I don't get really stressed and get healthy, right? Yeah. So, people with lower stress levels get sick less. No doubt about it. Yeah. Miss Savarino.
I just had a question, I guess, for like my own personal like
Yeah.
storage. So I mean, like whenever we're breathing and stuff, it's like automatic. But if I go into like breath work and I'm doing stuff to like clear the emotional, like 'cause, our cells hold the energy, and whenever we get pressed, it holds it. So you have to, do the breath work to clear it. With me like controlling my breathing and doing like the DMT, like is that like doing a somatic, or is that still?
No, that's somatic. You are taking
Okay,
over an
so it's-
automatic function, yeah.
Okay.
And you can. There's lots of research to suggest that you're really basically in control of everything. But for convenience, your brain's being very helpful. You don't want to have to think about your breathing all the time.
Oh
But
yeah, for sure. I just wanted to make sure that since I'm like, like just like the fact that you consciously take over, that switches over to being somatic because.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're kind of saying, I'll take over the sub-program for a while. And you do. Yeah. And then you can change it however you want. And breath is easier for us because we're used to holding our breath. We're used to playing with it. So we tend to be more connected with it. But there are yogis that can speed up and slow down their heartbeat, change their blood sugar. I mean, stuff that we're like, no, you can't do that. They do it all the time. So yes, you can turn anything basically into a somatic activity if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay.
With practice. But that's what you're doing, is you're practicing. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So, by the way, countries do the same thing, and I'm not trying to make a big political statement, but when we're off fighting war, we don't worry about building more schools, right? When we're doing these things, we have to put our resources, we only have so many resources, we have to put them in one area. Your body does the same thing. So once you're in a relaxed state, in the parasympathetic state, your body says, hey, that's fine, we're not in danger. And if I'm not in danger, what am I going to do? Well, let's repair some bone. Let's make sure the body's clean of cancer. We got some viruses that are getting a little bit out of check here. Let's go and take care of those because we got plenty of resources. Let's digest that breakfast sandwich we had. This is why they, tell you not to go swimming right away afterwards, right? You don't want to be in some different mode where you can't kind of digest this stuff. So your body starts saying, let's build stuff up, right? You guys don't try to study when you're in panic mode, right? You've got to sit down in a quiet room. You got to, right? So anyway, that's the parasympathetic state, and everything seems to suggest, in every study I've ever read, that when you're in your parasympathetic state, you literally are healing disease. And so just getting your clients into a room and relaxing them, just that alone, I actually suspect that's one of the big benefits of massage. And I'm like, oh, I worked out their muscles, and Tapscott's amazing. Tapscott's not that amazing. Tapscott was cool, though, and got them to go into a room and care about themselves and get in touch with themselves and get their breathing down and get them relaxed and gave them some positive suggestions that were true. That was amazing. That probably really helped them. I'm not suggesting massage doesn't help them too, but my point is I don't think we fix so much. We get them into a state where they can fix themselves. So we are always trying to get clients into the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest state. Yeah? So we have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system divides down into what's under our immediate control, the somatic stuff, and the automatic stuff, my heartbeat, my hormones, everything, lots and lots of stuff there. The automatic part of my nervous system can be in two modes. It's either sympathetic, which is really geared up, or parasympathetic, where it's healing. Last thing, and then we'll go on break. We all live, and this is not me being down on the age that we live in, but it used to be 1,000 years ago that you only went into the sympathetic state when you saw somebody rushing at you with a sword or there was an actual tiger. Now, I can watch videos of tigers, I can watch wars around the world, all on my phone, and my brain doesn't know the difference. I can accidentally put myself into the sympathetic state 24/7. Right? It's very dangerous for us. So we are exposed to more information than we've ever had in our lives, and you have to be very careful how you digest that. I think it's very important to be informed about the world, but don't be over-informed, because your brain watches that stuff, and it's just like a tiger coming at it, and it gets you out of the parasympathetic state, and we have access to it all the time, all the time. So it's a very different world. It's one of the reasons we need massage therapists in quiet rooms where people have to turn off their phone, and you don't have a phone. so they can get back to the parasympathetic state. Because most of us are on high alert all the time. And by the way, if it's not this, it's gosh, if I don't pass that test, I'm going to fail, and then I won't be able to pay my bills, and then I'll starve to death. Or if I don't do a good job, my boss is going to fire me, or whatever. We have lots of stressors in our life that we used to not have. So it's a very different world. It can be very overwhelming. And so our job is to get people back in the parasympathetic state. Yes, Miss Avalos.
Well, and it also produces the chemical component, and we become addicted to cortisol and not even intentionally to cortisol and adrenaline, and we're sitting there a junkie pretty much, and we are walking around traumatized. So it's so important, I agree, to get somebody into that parasympathetic state, because whether we know it or not, we're always in it.
I love what she said about a junkie. Do we know, by the way, everybody, like, let's take cocaine or heroin, by the way, both just grabbing random drugs, honestly. Cocaine does not get you high. Heroin does not get you high. Did you know that? Heroin tells your body to release endorphins you got. Those get you high. The chemicals are inside you. Being stressed out and all ramped up all the time, sometimes it's kind of exciting, right? So is crystal meth. It's the same experience, but we've got to learn to get out of that state. Yes, you can get addicted, and we all know people that are addicted to drama. They are addicted to being in that sympathetic state. It is very addicting. It can also be addicting to get into the parasympathetic state. That's what we're learning to do. Yes, Ms. DeVos.
It's so crazy. Is the other day I was actually talking about this. For me personally, I'm not addicted to drama per se, but because of how I grew up, I ended up growing up addicted to chaos.
Yes.
So anything that is like peaceful is like foreign to me, and if something chaotic isn't going on, then I feel like something's wrong. And so I've been working to like keep myself calm, tell myself like it's okay to be in an environment where you actually feel safe. Like that's normal.
Yeah.
That's actually
Yeah.
normal. So it's really hard to like readjust your brain to understand that not everything has to be chaotic and uncomfortable all the time.
Right.
Like it's okay to be calm and peaceful.
It is hard. I'm really glad you shared. Thank you. Yeah. And by the way, it's even harder when somebody associates that with love. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
with-
that's definitely
nothing wrong with your family at all. It's not a judgment at all. But if your family was chaotic, then you kind of associate love with chaos. And so if you're dating somebody and it's not chaotic, you're like, they must not love me. That's what I meant about association, right? We don't really know what these things are. It's just what our brain tells us these things are. Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing. Miss Carrillo.
Yeah, I'm going off of what Sky said, because if someone's like really nice to you because of how you grew up and everything, you're like, okay, what's their hidden agenda,
Yeah.
But I also wanted to throw in, with like how stress and everything, the fight or flight, like how some bodybuilders try to be as calm as possible because it can affect actually their body the day of. My trainer showed me that a bodybuilder, he was just trying to stay calm. It was like the day of and everything. And then he got stressed just a little bit and he bloated like the same day.
Sure.
And he ended up not winning that competition. But he didn't, I don't know their full preparation, but they cut like immensely. And he was ripped that morning. And then at the end of it, he was bloated because he was stressed a bit.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, very powerful. All right, everybody, let's take a break. We'll be back at 10:05. Thank you. Thank you all. And we're back. All right. So let's move forward. Let me reshare here. Awesome. Okay. So when we last left you, we were talking about all the divisions they make in explaining the nervous system. These are divisions that are man-made divisions to explain the nervous system. But you got your brain, your spinal cord, your central nervous system, the nerves coming off that are your peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is divided into somatic and autonomic. Your autonomic nervous system is divided into your sympathetic and parasympathetic. Mr. Richards, please.
So why, when we go to the doctors, if our body has got these chemicals to, make things easier, why do doctors just give you stuff? Like, I went to have my tooth out, they give me antibiotics before I even got an infection. So why do they fill us with all this crap when our bodies really can take care of this?
Well, I mean, I agree with you, but there's also been a lot of studies that if they give you extra antibodies, they seem to have less problems. The problem is there's also a lot of studies to suggest that the extra antibodies kill off a lot of good bacteria in your body. So there's a trade-off. I don't want to.
Wondering what their first response. I mean, it's confusing in some sense.
Well, our medical system, at least in this country, is very symptom based, and it's very based in dealing with the problem at hand. So, for example, this is a terrible scenario, but if you get shot, this is the country to get shot in. We have some of the highest survival rates in the world for people who are shot because we are really good at dealing with problems right in front of us. We'll air vac you in, they will sew you up in a trauma unit, and they will save your life. That said, we actually have some of the worst health in the world. Our child mortality rate, infant mortality rate in this country is 33rd in the world. We come below Slovenia. There are 33 other countries that you are better off being born in than this country, believe it or not, because we're not good at general health. We have some of the highest rates of diabetes. We have some of the highest rates of high blood pressure in the world. So what we're not good at, Mr. Richards, is looking at the long term. We know antibiotics will definitely help you not get an infection from that tooth, and so we give it to you. We don't think about what might that do to the bacteria in your gut that you need for other things, and is it a good idea, and should we always give it to you? And we've even run into problems with this. So we've run into problems where some of the bacteria out there is getting smarter and stronger because we keep over medicating everybody with antibiotics, and we're getting superbugs and such. So you're absolutely right. There are some very good things about our medicine, very good things. If I broke my arm right now, I wouldn't stay at home and just say it's going to heal itself. I would go to the hospital, and they really would help me. But general health they're not good at, right? They're not really good at these kind of holistic kind of thinking things. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And so that's that. Also, by the way, all the research that's done is done essentially by pharmaceutical companies, so we tend to find pharmaceutical answers for everything. And that's not always the best way to go. Okay, here is your central nervous system. Here is your peripheral nervous system. I want to make one comment about this. If they showed you all the nerves of your peripheral nervous system in this picture, this isn't even 1%. This person would be yellow. All of them. Because you have nerves going to every single, tenth of a square millimeter on your body. Lots of nerves. So please understand that when you see pictures of nerves, there's billions of nerves everywhere, billions. Okay. Yes, Ms. Dmitrik, please.
So when I'm looking at my piece of chicken and, I can see the muscle side, but I don't see nerves, or where would I look for a big nerve vein?
They're too small in your pieces of chicken. By the time they've gotten down to that size, they're too small. I'm not trying to be gross, but if we got the whole chicken and we cut its neck, we'd be able to see the spinal nerve, going down. But as it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, they're just very small. They're very tiny. I know it's very good. Nerve cells are just one cell, connected to another cell, and they're so tiny. They're just really small. Even your chicken, when you boil chicken and you shred it apart, and you get those little hair-like things, that's not even a single muscle cell fiber. That's a whole bunch still stuck together. Even those little shreds are lots and lots of muscle cells. So we're talking about very small things. That's why you can't see it. But as we scale up, as you get closer to the spinal cord on anything, the nerves get thicker. And it's just but at that point they're too small to see. Yeah. Your nerves are covered. This is going to shock you. Your nerve cells are very delicate, so they're covered in connective tissue. Why? Because everything in your body is covered in connective tissue all the time. And when in doubt, your body covers that connective tissue with more connective tissue and then packs it inside some connective tissue and wraps some connective tissue around it. Right? It's like you wrapping up Christmas packages to ship out east to your family. You put all that extra tape around the package to make sure it doesn't open up. So you have connective tissue that insulates your nerves, just like plastic around an electrical wire. It insulates them so that electrical signals can run down them better, and it protects them, and it also provides a way for blood to get in there and nourish the cells and all that kind of stuff. Your nerve cells also have what's called a myelin sheath around them. The reason you want to know about the myelin sheath is it actually helps. It helps insulate the nerve and make it conduct better. It makes the wire work better. And the other reason you want to know about myelin is that there are diseases that can actually affect the myelin sheath in the body where it gets worn down and then the nerves don't work so well. So sometimes you'll hear about an unusual nerve disorder or something that actually affects the myelin sheaths. And that's why I throw that in there really quick. All right. Let's go into here. This is a picture of a nerve cell. And essentially it's got two ends to it. It's got the cell body here with this long arm coming out of it. The cell body has these feelers that come out of it called dendrites. And this long arm is called the axon. And it goes down here, and usually it connects to another nerve cell. This is a dendrites going down this axon, connecting to another dendrite and going down that one and going down and going down and going down. And that's usually how your nerve wires are made. But eventually, they often end up, like your motor nerves, often end up attached to a muscle. And that's where they will send a nerve signal, and we're going to get into how they do that here in just a second, that will send a signal to fire a muscle. They're very simple in that sense. Okay. So the dendrites tend to pick up stuff, often senses from another nerve, and then send it down the axon to transmit it down to the muscle or the next nerve. Yeah? Boom. I really like this picture. So in general, impulses go this direction. And they either end up in a muscle or an organ or going to another nerve. And literally it's carrying an electrical signal here that goes down here, gets changed to a chemical signal, picked up again, and carried down the next nerve. And we're going to get into that. They classify your nerves as, and by the way, it's the same wires that your body uses, but your body uses some wires to sense things and other wires to tell things to move. So the wires that your body chooses to have go from your fingertips, for example, up to your brain are called afferent nerves. And they are sensory nerves. They are receptive nerves. It's the same wiring. It's the same nerve cells, but they are fully dedicated to sensing. They're not telling things what to do. They're picking up senses from the outside world and taking them to your brain. So if you find yourself in an afferent nerve, you are traveling to the brain with information. Once that afferent nerve gets to the brain and says, hey, and the brain goes, oh my gosh, that means that Mr. Craven has his hand on the stove again and it's on, and it sends a signal back out an efferent nerve, which is the same type of wiring, by the way, but this is a wire fully dedicated to some muscles in his bicep. And this efferent nerve sends a signal down there going dee 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 dee, and the bicep gets that signal and it contracts and pulls his hand away. So afferent nerves take sensory information to the brain. Efferent nerves send information out to muscles, organs, everything, and tells them to do stuff. But this is just nomenclature. It's just a name that we have given to the exact wires, but these are just wires that are dedicated to sensing or wires that are dedicated to telling things what to do. But they're exact same. If you opened up a human body and you lifted out a nerve, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it was an afferent or an efferent nerve. They look the same. It really has to do with what they're being used for, right? If you have pipes on your house and they're bringing water to your house, maybe they'd be afferent pipes. If the waste pipes going away from your house would be efferent pipes, but they're all pipes. We don't know. I realize the pipes look a little bit different on your house, but my point is still, these are all the same wire in the same pipe. Somebody just raised their hand? Somebody? No? Maybe? Not? Kind of? Sort of? Miss Carrillo, please.
That was me. I was just gonna re-say back to make sure I understand it. So, afferent, I'm trying to see how I can understand it in my head. You said fingertips to brain, so if you touch, a dog, a fuzzy dog, it's like, oh, I am affirming that this is fuzzy. And then efferent would be the effort to pet the dog or cat or whatever's fuzzy, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Best explanation ever, and gave us ways to remember it. Yeah. Afferent is affirming with information coming to you. Efferent is information going to tell you to produce effort at something. All the same wiring. We've just chosen to name the wiring. Yeah. Very cool. Love that. You guys do have what are called, you do have what's called reflex arcs that are built into your body. So remember Mr. Craven who likes to put his hand on the stove? Yes. Well, actually, lucky for him, because he's accident prone, that signal actually does go all the way to his brain, and his brain does say ouch and sends the signal back, pull his arm away. But you guys have reflex arcs built in that when you get an extreme nociceptor, which is kind of a pain receptor, extreme nociceptor signal, your body actually has a nerve that will send back and make you jerk automatically without even going to your brain and asking it to. Now you can override this, just as we've talked about. You can hold your hand there, but what happens is your brain doesn't even want to take the extra millisecond to get all the way up there and back down to your arm until you pull your hand away. So it's got a way to do it even faster. It's a reflex arc, and it really doesn't even ask you. It's just like, that's too much, and it pulls your hand away. It helps speed things up when you've done something that could be possibly dangerous. Miss Hendrickson.
So, like, a flinch, is that a reflex?
Yeah, probably a reflex arch. And it really, it's wiring that's kind of built into your body that if it gets an extreme nociceptor kind of set off, that the wiring actually causes you to do an involuntary flinch or something. And the idea is it's protecting you. And you can't override it, but it's protecting you and causing you to pull your hand back just a millisecond sooner, because when it comes to burns and things like that, that could be the difference between having a hand or not, basically.
But couldn't you also have like you're having like a reflex due to something that you see or hear as well, which isn't that more complicated in like the way it gets to the brain with those senses?
Yeah, and with all due respect, that's not really a reflex arch. That is a reflexive pattern that you've got memorized in your brain, that when you hear this sound, you do this thing. And it's kind of subconscious. This is true wiring. Like, it doesn't have to have the brain involved at all. The stuff you're talking about has the brain involved.
Okay. Good.
Miss Correa.
Is this also the same, we're going with the hot stove scenario? Say you're going to be boiling a pot, but the stove isn't on or anything, but you kind of forget that. Basically, you put your hand on the pot and you reflex away, but it's not even on. Is that part of the reflex as well? Because I'm trying to find the words. I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's not. It's a great question. It's not. That is your brain going, wait a second, I thought that thing was hot. I'm going to pull my hand back. Right? That's you remembering that. Reflex arcs don't have anything to do with your brain. Reflex arcs are you pull your hand back and then you go, ouch, because you got the signal to pull your hand back before your brain even processed that. And then, yeah, it's a millisecond, but it's a very important millisecond. You're talking about when you put your hand down there and your brain's like, wait a second, that's hot, we shouldn't be doing that. And it's remembering and trying to kind of subconsciously kick in. A little bit different. Yeah. Good question, though. Okay. Reflex arts. Here you go. Afferent, efferent. Boom. So, nerves. Nerve fibers are usually bundles of fiber, right? Because you have usually a whole bunch of nerves going to some spot. And just remember that nerve fibers like to travel along with arteries and veins. I've said this before, but just like when they open up the roadways here and you see them working on the street, they've got the sewer pipes running down there, they've got the water pipes running down there, they've got the cable and everything running down there. You wouldn't want to build 3 trenches for one set of whatever. And so like in my axillary region, which is an endangerment site that we're careful of, it's not just my nerves that are there. My brachial nerve is there, yes, but also my arteries and veins are there too. They tend to travel together. Nerve bundles tend to travel together along with arteries and veins. That's just kind of an important thing to know about how you're kind of wired together. So when I push really deep into the axillary region, I'm worried about actually hitting the arteries, veins, and nerves. It's an endangerment site for all 3. Down here, these are fascial names. Do you guys remember endomysium, paramysium, and epimysium? That was the fascia around the muscles, right? Same thing here. Endoneurium, peroneurium, epineurium are just the layers of fascia around the nerve and around bundles of nerves, right? It's the same concept. I don't think you really need to, besides today's test or tomorrow's test, I don't think you're ever going to need those words again. But I do want you to remember for the rest of your life that nerves are wrapped in layers and layers of fascia. That's important because the fascia can get stuck and it can kind of affect the nerves too. So you've got all this fascia in your body and fascia can get stuck, and we're kind of fasciologists here, right? That's why I bring it up. The names are kind of arbitrary. But here is fascia around fascia around fascia around all these nerves and bundles of nerves.